Whose call was it to draft Bryce Young, and what was Frank Reich saying at the press conference yesterday about his owner?
I mean, ultimately, I think it was David Tepper's call. Now, I do know that there was pretty strong agreement that Bryce Young was the correct pick at the time. And I can tell you, just having talked to Frank over the last 4 or 5 months, he really likes Bryce as a player. There's a lot about him that Frank was enamored with before the draft, and so do I know that Frank absolutely positively loved Bryce Young over CJ Stroud? Maybe not, but I know he liked Bryce Young quite a bit.
But he might have
I
had to do that because the owner really loved Bryce
yeah,
Young.
yeah. But I would say I've got a pretty good sense for when someone's BSing me. I don't think Frank's BS'd me with that. Like when I've talked to him about it, at least. Like I
Okay.
do think he really believes in Bryce Young. Again, doesn't mean he didn't like CJ Stroud also, but I do think he really liked Bryce Young. The idea that Tepper is overbearing is not new. The people who were there last year felt that way. The people in the front office have felt it.
Wow.
He is, and I think this is a credit to him. Okay, he runs his football team like he runs his other businesses, like he runs his hedge fund. And I think people who have worked for him would tell you that it's a high pressure environment. And I think he's applied that to running his football team. And I think what Frank said the other day reflects the way a lot of people have felt working for David Tepper. And in Tepper's defense, like I think the owners that apply their business principles to running their football team generally figure out a way to make it work. But it doesn't always happen right away. Like you brought up Robert Kraft, right? It took Robert Kraft a good 6 years to figure it out and hire Bill Belichick. And once they got rolling, they were rolling. But I mean, he screwed it up with Pete Carroll. Now, Pete Carroll wasn't Pete Carroll at that point either. It wasn't the Pete Carroll of USC or Seattle at that point. But it took Robert Kraft like a few years to figure it out. It's taken other owners who are really, really good. Jed York in San Francisco. I think people would tell you Jed York's done a really good job in facilitating and enabling guys like John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and Parag Marathi and all the guys that run the show there. I think people would tell you like Jed's done a great job the last few years. He was not well liked by Jim Harbaugh, a decade ago, And so I think a lot of these owners have to go through a process of figuring it out when they get in charge. And I think this was, all of this is part of the process of David Tepper getting there. And unfortunately, oftentimes there's collateral damage along the way. And it's not impossible to envision a scenario where this current regime could wind up being collateral damage.